Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking to G.I. Sanders, a local entrepreneur here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area who started up a venture before the pandemic, made it through, and is flourishing in vinyl sales. Next on the sound of Safe and Sound, Texas. So we're doing something a little different this week. I'm interviewing a gentleman who's really taken a business model and advanced it well beyond what his first intentions were. And I thought it was really interesting to understand his journey, where he's at, and where he's going. I think these kind of things are very, very positive for the vinyl industry as a whole, and it shows what some innovation and some creative thinking can do. So I've sat down with G.I. Sanders on a wide-ranging set of topics, and on this part, we're going to be covering the business that he started here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and how it has grown and it has lived through the pandemic and done very, very well afterwards, and how he's really kind of just gone with the flow and seen where it would take him. And I really think it's an example of what people can do when they have a passion for something, which GI obviously does. So let's listen in on part of that interview with G.I. Sanders. G.I., thanks for taking the time today. I know you're a busy guy. And GI, I didn't know until I had gone into several of his locations and noticed what he was doing with selling vinyl, and then through Facebook and friends and various things, tracked down through who he was and started a conversation. So I thought it'd be interesting to share, his journey. He's 20 years or so younger than I am, so he came through vinyl at a time when vinyl wasn't a very big thing. So totally different perspective. So GI, thanks for coming in. Appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely, man. If anybody knows me, they know that I will talk about records ad nauseum. So when you said, "Hey, you want to get on a Zoom chat and talk?" I go, "Sure." That's all I ever do, regardless if it's on Zoom or on chat or wherever it is. So I'm always game to talk about vinyl.
Well, great. Yeah, that's great. We're kindred spirits in that way, and it's very interesting to me, having grown up with it as a normal thing, and then guys like yourself that really had early struggles finding it, and now the whole resurrection of it that's occurred in the last 10 to 15 years. Yeah. So it's quite amazing, and things have changed a lot. So, why don't you start with giving us a little bit of your background, how you got introduced, and then kind of morph into the business that you brought into the DFW, meaning Dallas-Fort Worth, if you don't know, in Texas, US of A, because we're international when this goes on YouTube. That what you brought into our space here of a very unique way of approaching bringing vinyl to enthusiasts. Take it away.
Yeah, so I've been collecting. I mean, I think I probably bought my first record legitimately when I was probably 12 or 13 with my own money. I mean, there were records around the house when I was younger. But, pretty much when I started to go from junior high to high school, so, 12, 13, 14 years old, right in that period is when music in general started to become really important for my life. Prior to that, it was just kind of, background noise, more or less. But at that point is when I started to really pay attention to what was going on. And this is the late 80s, early 90s, which was a really exciting time for new music. And that's when I kind of grasped onto it and started to realize that there were record stores. And for whatever reason, this is the CD era, obviously, the early 90s. So I had plenty of CDs because it was much more affordable those days. But I remember just being enamored and kind of attracted to the album art of the record, of the vinyl LP. And so while all my friends were doubling down on CDs just as much as I was also kind of picking up vinyl records, a lot at thrift stores and garage sales, as you'd expect. But then every now and then I'd save up my money if it was an album I really liked. I just felt like it was a bigger statement to own it on vinyl. And I've kind of held that all the way through my adult life as well. So I collected all on the way, obviously ramped up in recent years as you become an adult and you actually have money to spend. That helps. When you're a kid in your teens and your 20s, and you just don't have that expendable income. And so I collected all on the way. But it was, sporadic, and it would go in peaks and valleys. But really the last probably 10, like you mentioned, kind of 10, 15 years is when I really started to dedicate real time and effort and money to it. And then especially in kind of the last 5 years, which is when I started NTX Vinyl, or North Texas Vinyl. It's been about 3.5 years since I started it conceptually. And now it's kind of blossomed into not only the physical locations, which I have in our area, which are kind of booths inside of larger antique malls. So they're not standalone shops. So I'm not there. People ask me all the time, or tell me all the time, hey, I'm going to swing by the shop. I'd love to meet you. I'm like, well, it's not exactly how it works, but I've got the physicality to those locations, which is cool because I restock them each week. I have 3 of them right now in the Metroplex. And then also have an online presence, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, and then my YouTube channel, which I've focused on most recently in the last couple months. So it's kind of started to morph into this. Well, one, it's just kind of, an extension of me and my collecting as far as what I stock, what I sell, what I'm into. Those are all combined, more or less. There's not a lot of lines drawn there. And then it's kind of turned into this kind of concept, if you will, to where I have, not only the physical stores, but the online component, and have started to now kind of be additive with those, with the YouTube channel, which is now brought in this kind of educational component, because that's mostly what I talk about on YouTube, whether it's education about the industry or specific records, or whatever it might be. So it's kind of morphed into this cool little thing, kind of a brand, if you will, that has really been organic and has evolved a lot over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's amazing because it really is a different take on finding vinyl, and it's not kind of where you expect it at first. I know when I went in and was looking for your store, because I found it through, I think I told Google Maps, where are the nearest record stores to me or whatever.
Sure.
And I think I was up near Frisco, and that's when I first encountered one of your locations. And I'm looking around outside for a record store, of course, and I don't see
you
one.
And everybody else.
Yeah. And so finally I just got persistent. I said, I'm going to go in this big building because it keeps telling me it's here. And she's like, oh yeah, it's in the back corner, it's and I said, oh, okay. Oh,
yeah, it's an interesting model. Like, we've all been in, I would suspect most vinyl collectors have been in thrift stores or antique malls or swap meets or those types of buildings or situations. And I was really, to be honest, I was kind of hesitant starting out, especially in my area where I'm at, which is kind of north of downtown. I'm very much in a suburban area that's not, there's no foot traffic of people looking for records. It's not like an arts district or anything like that.
Right.
I'm out in the suburbs, through and through. And so I didn't really know if it was going to work. And this is, again, going back about 3 years. And I was pleasantly surprised about the number of people who are in my very hyper local area of my initial location, which is right where I live in Highland Village, which is the Louisville area, north of probably 30 minutes north of Dallas, Texas. And I was just blown away that there were people interested and it just goes to show you, again, this is again 3 years ago, that it was really catching hold and starting to become a real thing for a lot of people beyond just the total enthusiasts, people who've been collecting forever, and then the pandemic hits and all bets are off at that point. And that's when things really, really caught fire in a big way. And that was a game changer and an eye opener too, because, retail shut down. And I'll be honest, I remember thinking, well, maybe that's it. I had the little store open for about a year and retail shut down. And I didn't know if this antique mall is even going to open back up at all, or how long it would take. And so I was kind of like, man, it was a fun little thing. And that was kind of it. And my kind of last ditch effort was like, well, maybe I'll just double down on doing online stuff while we wait this out. Cause no one knew how long it was going to last.
Sure.
at all. And that's really what set fire to the whole thing, is because I doubled down online, and that expanded my audience so much. And then at the same time, you had all these people stuck at home looking for things to do, and records became a thing again in a lot of people's eyes. And it's just the demand has skyrocketed since then and isn't stopping at all. So
Yeah.
it was an interesting time period when I happened to start this right, again, a year before the pandemic hit. Just perfect timing, for lack of a better phrase, on how it kind of helped the evolution of NTX vinyl.
Yeah, that is interesting because yeah, it's kind of like you start a business and then you hit this situation. The other thing I think about is people were getting some I'll say some free money from the government, expendable income as
That was the
well.
thing. That
And
was
I
the
mean,
thing.
I remember the day I walked into a Walmart when the pandemic hit, about 4 or 5 months after that, and I go in the back where the TVs are, and they're wiped out, literally wiped out. And I'm like, did you guys have a robbery or what? I mean, literally, it was like, what what happened?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I
Absolutely.
mean, so how did when you come to that whole situation? So now you have a physical space set up to people to go to. That place isn't available. Did you bring your inventory back? How did you deal with the logistics then?
Yes, I remember. And again, this is early days. So I just had one shop. Now I have three. So it was much simpler then. So
Sure.
yeah, I remember when you got the phone call, said, "Hey, we're shutting our doors on this day because it's a mandate." So I went up there, pulled I think almost all of my records out, which at that time was, I don't know, maybe 700 or 800 records. Let's say it was probably less than 1,000 records. So again, it wasn't big, and it still isn't. They're small booths, very curated, very much all about quality versus quantity, because I don't have a lot of space. So yeah, I pulled them all out. And I'd been engaged in Facebook groups, the vinyl community online, for years prior to that. So I knew the lay of the land as far as like what to do if I wanted to. My whole thing was with having a physical location was I wasn't really too excited about shipping records. All of it. A inventorying them in my house and having them, and then having to deal with shipping and all the logistics of that. Right. That's
Yeah.
why I opened the physical shop. It's like, I don't want to do that. I'd rather have a
Right.
physical location where I can drive a quarter mile or across town, drop off some good stuff, advertise it, and let people come and get it. Like that was the whole model. And it still is from the physical side. So when retail shut down, yeah, I went and grabbed it all. I had my listening room, which is where I'm at now. I had crates everywhere of all the records that I brought. And I said, all right, how am I going to sell these? And that's when I started doing auctions and giveaways and raffles and just online sales and all this type of stuff through not only primarily my own Facebook page, NTX Vinyl, and Instagram and all that, but also I started doing more in some of the other groups. And then eventually I started my own group, which isn't for selling, but still creates the community. And like I said, yeah, just the exponential growth for the company, for the brand of NTX Vinyl, because of all that. I mean, I can't understate or overstate how important that is to the story of kind of what's got me to where I am. If retail hadn't have shut down, I don't know how long it would have taken me to really build that online presence. I was already building it, but it was just slow, and
Yeah.
then again, it just put fuel to the fire.
You had a catalyst. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a perfect scenario, like I said, of
Yeah.
people being stuck at home, looking for something new to do, looking for something fun. You had the Walmarts of the world starting to get involved with selling vinyl then too. And, it was just, again, so many different things, all kind of coming to a head at once during that period of, early mid 2020, I guess it was when
Right.
when it really caught fire.
So for those of us in the DFW area, why don't you tell me and tell our audience where your shops are located? Because I think there probably would be some people maybe that are just finding out about you that would like to check out what you got to have in those
Yeah,
stores.
absolutely. So the physical shops, I have three of them. They're all out on the outskirts of the Metroplex. You mentioned Frisco, Highland Village, which is where I live, and then there's also one in North Richland Hills, and they're all located inside of an antique mall chain called Painted Tree Marketplace or Painted Tree Boutiques or something. And it's nice because it's kind of what I would describe as an upscale antique mall. It's not your typical kind of rundown
Right.
antique mall that smells like your grandma's house because it's a glorified garage sale. It's not
Yeah.
that. This is all kind of boutique-ish,
Yeah.
It's very much, there's actually not a lot in there at all. And there's like 300 vendors in each of these. So it's what you'd expect. It's an old grocery store that they gut and they put up walls, and you got several hundred vendors, but it's kind of unique in that almost all the vendors are selling new or handmade type of items, whatever it may be. Versus again, like secondhand stuff. So I have obviously some, pre-owned records and things like that. But for the vast majority, it's just a very clean environment, which is what I liked about it. And that being said, I don't get a lot of foot traffic from the normal shopper within a painted tree marketplace, because it's primarily women looking for gifts, looking for the home decor, even clothing, a lot of things like that. So I'm definitely the outlier within these, which I knew going in, but I know how social media works and I know how advertising works. And so the vast majority of the people who come into these establishments to buy records is because they already know about me. Like you said, you kind of Googled it and found it, or they've seen an advertisement, or I've kind of sent them in. So it does take a very proactive approach. It's not the type of thing where I can just drop off records and just forget about it and hope they sell. Like, that's not how this works. There's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes in regards to making sure that inventory is fresh and things keep moving and all that stuff, the type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I just to share an experience I had. I think it was it was North Richland Hills. That maybe is your latest one you put up.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went there, I've learned this now. When I go in these, I ask someone where's NTX Vinyl located.
Yeah, point me to it.
Yeah, because I will tell you, the first time I did
otherwise.
that, I just went walking around, and I was. I got a little frustrated, by the time,
sure.
And then, so just ask when you go in for them. And the lady there was so proud that you guys were in there. She said, "Oh, this is great. I never saw it. Come, I want to show you." So she was very promotional,
great, yeah.
Frankly, in that. And I stayed in there, and I kind of was hanging around. I watched people who walked by your place and literally did a double take. They walked past it, and then they stopped, and they turned, and they looked, and they went, "Are those records?"
Yeah,
and there are lots of records. Yeah, because I don't think they expect to see it. They don't expect to see it, I think, is the thing.
No, you're exactly right. And that's and for people like yourself and myself and all of the vinyl enthusiasts, it's commonplace. It's what we do.
That's why we're there.
But we are the anomaly. I mean, 99 out of 100 people have no idea that there are still records being manufactured today. And honestly, that 1 out of the 100 is probably because they saw it at Walmart. Let's be honest. I mean, it's few and far between. But it's hard to remember that for people like us who live and breathe this. But the reality is, it's still a very small niche market. It's growing, and the growth is significant enough, I think, to where this thing is going to sustain, and hopefully we'll have some longevity. But it's still very niche. But I love watching. I love being in the booth, which again, I'm only there at these shops once or twice a week at most. And when I am there and people do walk by or do walk in, I love talking with people when I do get that chance or that type of thing. Cause there are a lot of surprise looks, which is neat. The other thing I didn't mention, which was very important early on, when I kind of started ramping up the online business, was that I launched an online shop, which is great because I sell records all over the country now. I don't do international, but anywhere in the US, you can go to ntxvinyl.com and you can shop. But the most important thing, and the reason why I actually opened it, even more so than being able to ship records, because I mentioned that really isn't my goal to just ship records, but you can shop on the website and you can choose local pickup. And that's great because you can go to the site where there are thousands of titles available, way more than I have in my physical shops. And you can choose that, and then I'll order it and have it behind the counter for you. So I've got lots and lots of customers these days who shop with me and just choose local pickup, and then they swing by, and that way they don't have to be there right on release day when it comes out to make sure to secure their copy of the indie exclusive or the limited edition one or whatever. They just grab it online and they know I'm going to have it for them. So that's become a really big driver to send people to the shops to pick up the records, and of course they stop by the booth while they're there and that type of thing. So that's been a great strategy as well.
And you don't have to box it up to ship it as well.
Exactly. I
I know
don't get me
that's
wrong.
my
I
least
do
favorite
want.
thing to do. That's my
It
least
is.
favorite
And
thing.
the thing is that my business, again, the business has evolved where I do do a lot more shipping these days. It is, but again, I've been in business 3+ years.
Yeah.
And so it's taken me that long to get the confidence to do it, to handle the workload, the process to set it all up. You know, my wife helps me out a ton now. She was a school teacher prior to the pandemic, and she never went back to teaching. And she's been helping me with the website ever since. So she handles all, I mean, you're talking about customer service and returns and damaged albums. And
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I mean, people think it's real easy to just ship a few albums when they're selling on Facebook groups and things like that. That's fine. Try shipping 500 of them in a month, and try dealing with, 25 of them come back because of the record's damaged because of the mail or because it was a bad pressing. And you got all the, there's logistics in a retail e-commerce business on any scale. And so it took, like I said, it took a good couple of years to us to get to a point to where we were comfortable enough to go, okay, yeah, we can sell more online now because we've got a lot of systems and processes in place that we're confident about using, to where it's not overwhelming work-wise,
So what would you say in your business, what has your growth been year over year, let's say from 2019 through now or whenever you started?
Oh God. I mean, I'm trying to think about percentage. My business since I started, so legitimately about 3 years since I opened the first physical location, I'm probably 50x, something insane, something where if I think back to what now I have three shops, right? Just the physical shops, not even counting online business, but just those 3 shops. When I first started the first one, I'm thinking back to what I used to make per month. And now I'm easily making 10, 20 times that. And now I've got 3 of those shops. And then you add on the online component, and it's just like, yeah, it's off the charts, like nothing I ever imagined. I look at it every month and I'm still completely shocked. Like, oh my God, this is actually turning into a real business. Like I had no foresight for that. I mean, long story short, the only reason I even started any of this is because I was spending too much money on records for my collection. That was the whole thing. I was like, I'm spending too much money per month. How do I sustain this? Let's turn it into a business. Then she can't balk at it anymore, because then it's generating income. Like that was the real deal. And it was like, I started acquiring collections, and I realized that I don't need all these, because you don't need duplicates of every record. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have at least half of this collection that I can pass on to someone else. And I was just doing like everyone else and selling them on Facebook and doing that. And I kind of realized, like, wait a second, I think there's an opportunity here. And again, this is pre-pandemic, when a lot of things were different, when you could actually find collections a lot easier. These days, it's getting more and more difficult to do things like that. But yeah, that was the genesis of why I kind of started all this. It was just like, I just wanted to keep collecting. It was really legitimately a maneuver so I could keep collecting personally. And then it just snowballed to the point to where here we are, There was no business plan, I'll put it that way.
It just kind of pulled you along. You just kind of
it did as one step at a time. It's been completely organic, which has been amazing. I will say the one thing I always say is, like, I don't do anything if it feels like I'm forcing it. Like if I feel like I'm forcing it, I just step back a little bit. So it's been baby steps, month after month, and now year after year. I try not to force anything. I only do it if it feels right. I only do it if it's something, in most cases, that I enjoy, that I'm excited about. And I would say 99% of the time it's trial and error. It's like, hey, I wonder what happens if I do something like this. Point being, wonder what happens if I start doing YouTube videos. I had no idea. Like, believe me, I was the last guy who ever wanted to be on camera. Like, I'm not the type of guy who likes to get on camera and talk, believe it or not. Here we are, to where now I know the value of it. And I've gotten to a point where it's fun. So again, that's too, because thinking of the ideas and all that, like, that's a big part of it. Sitting down and filming it for 20 minutes, like, like, that's the work part. But the conceptualizing and coming up with what you're going to talk about, and records I get to pull out, and what the topic is going to be, all of that, like, that's all the fun, creative part. So it's, you got to have that balance, of the output versus the creative element to it. So yeah, it's been a fun evolution for sure.
Great. Do you keep the same inventory or in store as online, or are those separate inventories?
Not at all. They're totally separate. It's a great question. I get people all the time who ask me that. I even get people who will look on the website and then they'll show up at the store and be like, "Hey, I saw it on your website." I'm like, not how this works.
Yeah.
It's a different model for sure. At least I think it's different. I'm sure there's some other record stores that are the same, but yeah. So my online site, I am hooked into one of the largest distributors in the U.S. So you can go to my online site and you can choose from legitimately hundreds of thousands of titles, not only vinyl, but also CDs and DVDs, pretty much any sort of media. You can find that all on my website to purchase for in-store pickup or to have it shipped to you in the United States. But that's completely different than my little physical shops. Whereas you've been there, they're small booths. The largest one is a 20 by 15 or something, and the other ones are maybe like 12 by 12s. So they're small curated booths that house a tiny percentage of what the inventory is online. So again, it's kind of a different model I'm kind of experimenting with and seeing how that works. It does create some confusion sometimes, but by and large, it's been a really successful experiment with people being able to utilize both of them. And then of course it allows me to branch out and sell records outside of the Metroplex, which is great as well.
Sure. So none of your online product is used. It's all new?
Correct. I don't sell any. I've made a very, I've drawn a line that I do not sell pre-owned records online. The only place I'll sell some stuff online if it's pre-owned is on Discogs, sometimes on eBay, but mostly only on Discogs. And the main reason I only sell there is if it's higher end stuff. There's like, oh, I don't want to put a $250 albums in one of my booths. It'll sit there for months.
Oh yeah.
It'll get damaged because there's no one in the booth, obviously.
Sure.
But no, so I only sell new vinyl online for the most part. And that's because with selling online, I've already mentioned a lot of the work that goes along with that, with not only packaging and shipping, but returns and customer service and all that. Then you pile on the grading and the pre-owned intricacies, and it's just too much because and then it becomes a scenario of I've got one of these. People ask me, I do all kinds of online sales where I'll do like pop-up sales. And I've had people ask me, are you ever going to do anything that's like with vintage stuff, pre-owned stuff? I'm like, no, because then I can only sell one of them.
Right.
I'm in the business of scaling this thing. And if I've only got one copy of this, well, I'm going to make one person really happy. Right. And then the 29 people behind them that wanted to buy it, they're not going to be happy because they missed out on it. Like that's a lose-lose situation in most scenarios. So it's just not the business I'm growing online. So
Gotcha.
all new records for me online, it creates a lot of issues on the pre-owned side.
Which probably then, that's a reflection too, why maybe doing some of those higher end audiophile types is not lucrative or not, because you could have said, well, I'm only going to be able to get 3 of these, and that's it. So
Absolutely.
There's all sorts.
And again, that's just something I learned along the way. That's it's a great balance for me, what I've created, where all of my pre-owned stuff goes into my shops as well as new inventory. But then online, it's primarily pre-orders and new releases and catalog titles that come back around, so it's been a good balance there. And then obviously bringing in the YouTube channel has been great for exposure and education. And it's also been great for business because I've got a lot of people who are now buying from me who have seen me on YouTube, which has been great. I'm hoping to maybe be able to ship internationally someday, but that adds another layer of complication and logistics, which we're just not ready for at this point. So someday maybe, but yeah, it's all been an evolution of just kind of seeing what works.
Great. Well, I've kept you longer than I said, and so I do want to let everyone know I'm going to be putting in the comments your links to your sites and also your locations. So if they want to check you out, they can. It's a great experience. The thing I really like about what I've heard GI overall is you've really done a good job of defining over time who you are and who you aren't, and what you're going to do, and then backing up your product and making your business model one that works for you.
Sure.
And that's really entrepreneurial. And I think sometimes I've seen business plans drive businesses into the ground sometimes, because you've got to be flexible and agile, and you got to be creative thinking in order to work in today's world. And I see a lot of that going on with you. So
I
kudos
appreciate
to you. Kudos to you for that. So I thank you for taking the time, and hope you continue to have success with your business, and also growth. You know, growth is great, but managed growth is better.
Absolutely, Dave. Really appreciate the time. It's been great chatting with you, and we'll have to do it again for sure.
So there you have it, a man with a plan, on a mission to accomplish something, and contributing to the vinyl world, and to the ability of us in this Dallas-Fort Worth area and beyond to acquire vinyl, and to really have a different shopping experience. So kudos to GI for all that he's been doing. I really appreciate his honesty in the way he approaches things, and his straightforward way of discussing where he's at and where he's going. And I think it's really a great inspiration to folks who really have a vision and see something that they really enjoy and have a passion about. There's nothing worse in life than doing a job and hating it. That's really a struggle, and a lot of people have those situations for a variety of reasons. But to take your passion and to be able to do something with it, I know myself, the ability to share information and things I've learned over all these decades has been very helpful to me, and has been very much something that I've wanted to do, and now have found a venue for doing it, and will continue to do so. So this was part one of my talk with G.I. Sanders, talking about his business. We're going to have a second part that's going to talk more about vinyl and the quality of vinyl and the industry in general. And that'll be our second part coming out soon. So watch for that. I'll be putting in the comments information about GI's physical stores, and also his online presence, so you can check that out as well. And again, I appreciate GI for taking the time. So for now, this is David Bianco saying thanks. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, put in some comments if you have anything else you'd like me to cover, or if you have comments about this or questions for GI, I'm sure he'll be glad to answer them. And again, that's how we keep going. We just keep promoting and cross-promoting, and keeping vinyl at the forefront of what we do, and make it a great experience for everybody. So for now, David Bianco at the sound of Safe and Sound Texas. See you later.